In this video, I'm going to take you through my Artful August sketchbook. Now, Artful August was a challenge that I hosted during the month of August for the Paint With Me membership community, and we really were just trying to spark our creative processes or re-energize them. For me, my intention really was to get back into the habit of creating because I hadn't been creating very consistently at all, and I wanted to do it again, and I wanted to do it in a way that felt fun and easy and free. So the first thing that I did was to create a sketchbook. So I made a sketchbook out of hot press paper, and I did it out of hot press not because I love it, but because I never use it. And hot press paper really allows more for multimedia mediums than maybe just cold press paper, because cold press watercolor paper really lends itself to do the best with wet watercolor techniques. And I think that that would have made me commit or feel obligated to do more watercolor work, and I didn't want to lock myself into that. So I think using this hot press paper, especially it's paper I don't normally use, felt less like I needed to do watercolors and more like I could play with different mediums. And I also felt less precious about this sketchbook because it was using paper I wasn't using anyway. And so I just ripped out the sheets from the block and I stitched it together using a saddle stitch. And then I just started to decorate the cover. I changed the cover actually throughout the month because I didn't like what I did before, and I wanted to give myself that permission to do things messy, do things imperfectly, and switch them out if they didn't feel right, and be okay with it. So I didn't draw this image. I just want to say I didn't draw the image on this cover. It's a stock photograph that I transferred from a print using acetone onto watercolor paper, and then I just glued it to the cover of my sketchbook. And I just aesthetically like how it turned out, and that's why it's on the cover. And sometimes I don't think we need a reason other than I think it looks nice, especially when we're doing something for play. So here we go. Artful August was prompts that were weekly. So every week I gave a color. So the first week was red. And I started off by just doing like abstract sort of automatic painting. This wasn't meant to be an abstract piece. It was just let me put my brush down on paper with the color red and then see where my hand takes me. This is, for me, a great way to warm up, especially because I am coming into this month without really creating for a long time or creating consistently. So I wanted to give myself an easy in, and this was mine. The next day was kind of rough because I didn't really know what to make. Sometimes we lack that nudge of inspiration. So I told myself, I'm just going to think about the first thing that comes to mind when I think about this color. And it happened to be a character from my son's favorite movie right now. And it's a Disney movie called Cars. And this is the main character, and he's just red. And so I looked up an image of him and I just put it on here. The next day I started to feel a little bit more creative or inspired, and I thought, hey, let me experiment with ink on a brush. So I used my brush, I dipped it in ink, and I combined that also with watercolors here. And then I started to play with pencil lines. So pencil lines plus loose watercolors is really something that I enjoy. It feels fun for me, and so I started to do that here, continued it on the next day because it felt fun. I'm really just trying to follow what feels fun this month and embracing that. The next week was yellow. We didn't do all week, just to say we're not doing weekends during this month. So it's just 5 days. So the 5 weekdays and then a break on the weekend. So you can see each of these entries pretty much has 5. So yellow was the next one. I just did more automatic painting, sort of like automatic drawing. I just dipped my brush in color and then started to see what happened, what came out. And I returned to pencil plus watercolor here. I just really was loving this delicate, kind of loose, sketchy feel. I wanted to try loose, sketchy, and do a bigger flower and a bigger scale, and only use watercolor here. So my watercolor line work plus watercolor areas. And then I started to introduce a little bit of Conte Crown or oil pastel. I just wanted to start to mix media just for fun. And then, of course, this felt kind of awkward for me. And then the next day I returned to something that felt more familiar. I think that happens, you know, and I think we should give ourselves that permission to play and then do something that feels good the next day if that's what we want. And another note here as I flip through these, all of these are typically coming from a reference photo. So I like to work from reference photos. So I will look up a reference photo and then I will use that as the starting point of my inspiration. I don't think there's any shame in that. So if you need to look up something to spark your inspiration, then do it. So this one is actually the same reference photo done twice in two different ways. I did this one first with ink and wash, watercolor wash. And then the next day, I actually had a live call with my membership community, and we did this together on a Zoom. And I wanted to take the same reference photo and approach it a different way. And I used pencil with watercolors with them live, and we painted this together, played with some hatching in the background to create a background instead of a wash. And so that's why I sort of have two spreads of the same thing. This book was, this book was made with 24 pages, but the number of weekdays in the August of 2022 was 23. So technically there's only 23 days to this challenge. And so I filled this extra page with a exercise with my membership community. Here we have the start of Blue Week, and I did more mark making just to warm up and ease into it. Started to introduce here a colored pastel pencil for fun, along with watercolor line work. I thought that was really fun, and so I continued on with more line work with ink plus a wash, and the next day I returned to colored pastel with some watercolor, except this time I did this on mineral paper. So this was a new surface for me, and then I just cut it out and glued it into this sketchbook. It's really thin paper, and it's kind of fun to play with. It has a couple of different effects. So it was just fun for me to try a different surface. Last day of Blue, I did ink lines with watercolor lines, a little bit sketchy. You can see that this theme sort of runs in this sketchbook because this was what I was really feeling more comfortable with, what felt fun on days where I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I will sort of return to this kind of feel. Green, which is week 4. So we have week 4, more of this sort of automatic mark making, but with a little bit more form you can see coming into it. I don't know if it's because I was feeling more comfortable or what, but it's part of the creative process, right? Here I played with masking fluid, but using gum arabic as masking rather than actual masking fluid. It leaves a really soft look. Combined it with some colored pastel pencil and just played here. And I think the results were kind of interesting. A little bit messy, but it was fun. Back with the mineral paper, except playing with a large wash of it, seeing what would happen if I just left these streaks there, and just seeing how it turned out. I did gouache this day and a calligraphy brush pen, sort of like a brush pen instead of ink with a brush dipped inside. So I had a lot more control for the lines here. And just playing, I didn't pre-plan the colors. I just kind of went with it, which is a theme of this month. I'm just trying to go with it, whatever I feel like doing in the moment. And this is actually what came out. The next day I thought, let me just do pure watercolors. So no pencil, no ink lines, no other medium. So just returning to pure watercolor here. And then the last week, which is the 5th week of August, which was only 3 weekdays. So these are the last 3 days. This one I did with my community. It was really a study on how do we just do a little loose sketch, leave it delicate, and give a lot of extra breathing room that maybe we normally don't give to our painting. So I guess resisting the urge to continue adding more was really the exercise here. So you can see it's sort of in line with my returning to what's comfortable for me, which is really loose little pencil lines and loose watercolor lines. I'm just really enamored by the results that happen on this mineral paper when I combine watercolor with pencil. So I returned to it here just to play some more, and I had this extra piece laying around. So again, this is just it's cut out and then glued in. So this is not hot press paper here. This is actually colored pencil combined with watercolors, and I just wanted to play and see how it would work. It's, kind of blobby, a little bit messy, but then the pencil gives it a little bit of definition, which is kind of fun for me. I actually used a little bit of white pen here just to bring back a little bit of the details in the center of the flowers. And the last day, surprise, I came back to doing colored pencil or some sort of pencil mixed with watercolor with delicate lines and really sketchy and loose. It was my comfort zone or easy place to go. And I really just wanted to, like the theme of this whole month, allow myself to follow what felt good that day. And this is what came out. And so hopefully you enjoyed taking a look at my Artful August sketchbook, listening a little bit to the thoughts behind each day, why I approached it that way, or even just getting ideas for different mediums that you can combine together and use. And if you want to find out more about the Paint With Me community and what we do inside, you can find the links below this video. And if you'd like to do this challenge for yourself, I will leave the prompts and the colors all below if you want to challenge yourself to do this 1 month. I really thought that this helped me get back into the habit of creating, especially having fun with it. I'm actually surprised I finished the whole month, and I don't know, maybe you'll surprise yourself too. I will see you in the next video.